You know, it's not too often that an expansion team in any sport makes the postseason in only their second year of existence. But this happened to the Atlanta Flames, who are now the Calgary Flames. Of course, the goalies I like to make fun of because of their, not say bad goalie, but mediocre goalies, Phil Myre, Dan Bouchard, played a big part of it. Phil Myre, the former Montreal Canadian, that famous threesome of the 71 season with Vachon and Dryden. Now, they did play the Flyers in the playoffs, but didn't do it. Ironically, ladies and gentlemen, Cliff Fletcher was GM at the time, where Bernie Boom Boom Jeffrey on the coach and the great leader Keith McCurry as captain. Playing at the Omni, he finished the campaign with a strong 30, 34, and 14 record, 74 points. Although he couldn't score, he didn't give up many goals. He only gave up 238. Now, the Flyers entered with a 50, 16, and 12 record, and Atlanta faced them in the first round. Although Bob Leiter and the Flames lost to Philadelphia, they made a lot of fans. Now, that year was quite interesting. There were 4-1 against California, 1-2-2 in Chicago, 1-5 against the Kings, 3-2 against Minnesota, a strong 2-2-2 against the Flyers, 1-3-2 against Pittsburgh, and 1-3-1 in St. Louis in their own West Division. But in the East Division, they were 3-2 against Boston, 3-1-1 against Buffalo, 3-1-1 against Detroit, 3-2 against Montreal, 1-3-1 against New York, 1-2-2 against the Rangers, winless against Toronto, 0-4-1, and 3-2 against Vancouver. So 17-7-6. Now, what really helped them that year to get in the postseason, they were pretty well ahead of Pittsburgh for most of the campaign. Now, it was 8 teams in the division that year, and again, they were the number 4 seed. And what really helped them as well, in March, they had a big 4-game winning streak at the end of the month, which played a big factor, beating Vancouver 5-3, Boston 4-1, Minnesota 3-1, and 4-0 blank of Detroit. Now, the Flames made the playoffs for the first time in franchise history, 74, and again played the Flyers. The best of 7 series opened up in the Spectrum in Philadelphia in front of a sellout crowd of 17,007 as the Flyers opened the scoring with 4 seconds remaining in the first when Gary Dornhofer scored a shorthanded goal. The Flyers extended their lead to 2-0 the second after Tom Blayden scored. In the third, Oris Hinderchuk gave Philly a 3-0 lead. However, Bob Murray scored the first ever playoff goal for Atlanta, cutting the lead to 3-1. Hinderchuk added a second goal later in the third to give the Flyers a 4-1 opening game victory, with Perron getting the win and Myre the loss. The second game of the set, the Flyers took an early 1-0 lead by Terry Crisp. In the second, Rick McLeish scored a natural hat-trick, 3 goals in a row to lead 4-0. Ray Clemmo broke the Flyers shutout bid in the third. However, Jimmy Watson scored for Philadelphia as the Flyers won the second game 5-1, taking the 2-0 series lead. The series shifted to the Omni for the third contest, as the arena was sold out with 15,141 fans for the first ever playoff game in Atlanta. The Flyers opened the scoring with 2 quick goals in the first, as Donnie Selesky and Bobby Clark scored to give the Flyers a 2-0 lead. In the second period, Larry Romanich responded for the Flames, cutting the lead to 2-1. However, the Flyers regained their 2-goal lead when Rick McLeish scored his 4th goal of the season. In the third, Billy Barber scored for the Flyers as he took the third game 4-1. In the fourth game, facing elimination in front of another sold-out crowd, the Flames opened the scoring 3:28 in the game when Larry Romanich bet Bernie Perron to give Atlanta a 1-0 lead, their first lead of the series. In the second, the Flames took a 3-0 lead after goals by Jean Lemieux and Ray Clemmo. However, the Flyers' Andre Dupont scored a late goal to cut the Flames' lead to 3-1. Early in the third, the Flyers' Gary Dornhofer scored a power play to make it 3-2. On another power play, Tom Blayden scored for the Flyers, tying it at 3-3. The game went to OT, and the Flyers completed a comeback, but of all people, Dave Schultz bet Phil Myre as the Flyers win the game 4-3 and eliminated them for the postseason. Now, this season, Bob Leiter, in kind of a comeback year, led the team with 26 goals, 52 points, but Tommy Lysiak, the future Chicago Blackhawk, had 19 goals, 45 assists for 64 points. Romanish had 22 counters that year. Jacques Richard, 27, the high-rated Q player, Kurt Bennett had 17, Keith McCreary at 18. The defenseman Randy Beneri had 37 points, including 8 goals. Ray Cummo had 11 counters. Johnny Stewart had 18. Pat Quinn, the defender, the former Leaf, had 32 points, 5 goals. Leon Rochefort had 10 counters, 22 points. Al McDonough had 19 points in 35 games. Chuck Arneson, the former Hab, 13 points in 33 games. The agent Noel Price had 13 assists in 62 contests. The young Eric Vale had 11 points in 23 contests. Jean Lemieux had 3 goals in 32 games. Arnie Brown had another veteran player, 8 points in 48 contests. Butch Denmark scored 6 counters in 42 contests. Brian Hextall Jr. had 6 points in the season in 40 contests. Lou Morrison had 5 points in 52 games. The veteran Doug Bones had 3 assists in 28 contests. Bobby Murray had 3 assists. Ed Kia had 2 assists in 3 games. Bob Paradise, 1 assist in 18. Don Martineau, 4 contests. Dwight Balos, 11 contests. Phil Myre, 36. And Dan Bouchard, 46. So Dan Bouchard ended up with a 19-18-8 record, 2.77 GAA with 5 shutouts. And Phil Myre, 36 contests, 11-16-6, a 3.33. So not too bad. Now big deals on the year. They picked up Chuck Arneson from Montreal for a first-round draft pick, which showed up to be Rick Chartraw. Pierre Lagacé went to Montreal for Bobby Murray. They picked up Al McDonough. There was a later trade for Chuck Arneson and Bob Paradise. And on waivers, they picked up Brian Hextall from the Penguins. In intra-league draft, he picked up the veteran Doug Bones, and he lost Bill Plager as well. So in the amateur draft, it was Tom Laziak and Eric Vale, Dean Talafus, Ken Houston, and Greg Fox. So it was a good draft for them that year. So the Atlanta Flames of 1974, again, a lot of people weren't following the team until the second half of the season, when again the 2 deals with the Montreal Canadiens drew a lot of interest. But I think if Atlanta was playing kind of a defensive kind of an early form of the '86 trap by the Montreal Canadiens. But it was kind of weird with Boom Boom and Dan Bouchard down there. They became born-again Christians. And, of course, Dan Bouchard, the famous incident when he bet Montreal in '82, said God told him to beat Montreal, but what about 1984? But a very interesting season, because we were not expecting an expansion team in the old NHL to make it, but the Colorado Rockies later on. But they had a very good defensive team. A good mix of talent and veterans, and beautiful uniforms too as well. So that's the story of the 73-74 Atlanta Flames, the most unlikely playoff team pretty well in the decade. If you like what we're doing here with our NHL Vintage podcast, let us know what a like, comment, subscribe, or share.